The sky over Atlanta was gray the morning we buried Camille. The air smelled like wet pine and old stone. I stood there in a black suit that felt tighter than it should have. My fingers curled around the handle of the umbrella even though the rain had stopped hours ago. Camille's casket was deep mahogany, polished to a shine, like it had no idea she was gone. People from her side of the family filled the first 3 rows. Lawyers, executives, faces that didn't even glance my way. I could feel their eyes on me anyway, like cold pinpricks on the back of my neck. My son Marcus stood stiff next to me, his jaw tight, hands in his pockets. He's 22 now, taller than me, with the same deep brown skin but a sharper edge in his eyes. He hadn't said much since the accident, if it even was an accident. When the pastor's voice finally faded and the crowd began to disperse, Marcus turned to me without warning. "Let's go," he said, flat, almost like an order. I followed him to the car without a word. We drove in silence for what felt like an hour, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror. The hum of the engine was the only sound. Then Marcus took an exit I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped as the skyline vanished behind trees and power lines. I watched his knuckles tighten on the wheel. We stopped on a deserted bridge, the kind no one uses anymore, where the guardrails are rusting, and the water below looks like oil. He killed the engine. The quiet was heavy, like the world had gone on mute. Marcus finally turned to me. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "This is where you jump," he said. I stared at him, not sure if I'd heard right. My mouth went dry. The smell of damp metal and river mud drifted through the cracked window. And in that moment I realized the funeral wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of something I hadn't seen coming. The wind blew across the bridge, whipping through my coat like it wanted to push me over the side. I gripped the steering wheel, even though the car was parked, like holding on to it could anchor me to reason. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't move. His eyes were fixed on mine, sharp and unyielding, like he had already decided my fate. "Don't understand," I stammered. My voice sounded small, like it didn't belong in the space between us. Why would you even say that?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Because you need to pay," he said. "Not with money, not with a lawsuit, not with words. You need to feel it." The bridge swayed slightly with the breeze. Below, the river was dark and slow, swallowing everything in shadow. I could hear the water slapping against the supports, like tiny fists knocking on metal. My pulse kicked up. I imagined jumping, imagined the cold hitting me, the river closing over my head, the world ending in seconds. But then I looked at Marcus again. His face was a storm, his anger quiet but immense, like he'd been holding it in for years. And I realized something. This wasn't about the jump. It was about him seeing me break, about him reclaiming something I'd taken from him, without even knowing it. I swallowed hard. "You think this is going to fix anything?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. This isn't justice. You don't know what it's like to lose someone like Camille." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "I know exactly what it's like to watch someone die and not be able to do a damn thing." His hand rested on the dashboard. "I'm not asking you to jump because I hate you. I'm asking because you need to understand the weight of what's left behind." The air smelled sharp now, like ozone before a storm. I pressed my palms to the wheel, feeling the cold metal under my skin. I wasn't ready to jump, but maybe I needed to feel the edge. I took a slow breath. "Tell me what you want me to do, Marcus. Not just this," I said, nodding toward the drop, "but all of it. I'll listen." He looked at me for a long time. Then, almost imperceptibly, his shoulders relaxed, but the edge of the bridge still called, and I felt it tug at the corners of my mind. Marcus didn't answer right away. The silence between us was thick, pressing down like humidity before a thunderstorm. His fingers drummed once against the dashboard, a restless little sound, before he finally spoke. "You think I don't know what you did?" he asked quietly, eyes still locked on the water. "You think I haven't put it all together?" A shiver crawled down my spine. "What are you talking about?" He turned to me then, full on, his face tight with anger and grief. "Mom's death wasn't an accident. Not for me. Not anymore." The words hit like a punch. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I could feel the bridge trembling under the weight of a passing truck somewhere far off, the vibration traveling up through the soles of my shoes. The river below gurgled like it was whispering secrets. "Marcus," I started. "I loved your mother. Stop!" He cut me off, his voice breaking on the edge of control. "She was rich. You were broke. You married her, you got everything you wanted, and then she dies out of nowhere. Tell me how that makes sense." The accusation burned, but it was his eyes that hurt worse, wide, wet, and furious. This wasn't just about money. This was about years of doubt, suspicion, and grief he had carried without me even knowing. "I didn't kill your mother," I said, and my voice was steadier than I felt. "I lost her too, Marcus. You think I wanted this? You think this is what I wanted for us?" For a second his expression flickered, a flash of something softer under all that rage. He turned back to the water. His hands were shaking. "You don't get it," he muttered. "I can't sleep. I see her car. I see the crash. I see you standing there like nothing happened." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the boy under the man. The one who had been in the back seat of that car once upon a time, who I'd promised to protect. The wind whipped my tie across my chest. I reached out slowly, my hand hovering near his shoulder. "Marcus," I said quietly, "tell me what you saw. Tell me everything." He stiffened but didn't pull away. The dam was cracking, but what came through next could either drown me or save us both. Marcus's hands were trembling now, gripping the edge of the dashboard as if it were a lifeline. The gray sky overhead darkened with the promise of rain, and the bridge groaned beneath the occasional gust of wind. The river below churned slowly, black and endless, like it knew secrets no one else could bear to hear. I sat in the driver's seat, my own pulse hammering, and watched my son, the man I raised, teetering on the edge between rage and despair. He exhaled sharply, a sound full of frustration and grief, and started talking, faster than I could process at first. "I've been thinking about her, about Mom, ever since the ambulance took her away. The way you acted, so calm, so detached. You smiled at the funeral, Dad. At her funeral. I couldn't understand it. And then I remembered all the little things, all the times she complained, all the fights, the way you never really listened." I flinched. The truth stung like fire. Every word he said was a shard of glass. Camille had always confided in me about her frustrations, but I thought they were trivial, small annoyances in a life that otherwise seemed perfect. I never imagined they'd pile up in Marcus's mind, building resentment like dry kindling ready to ignite. "I thought you loved her," he continued, his voice rising, "but I've seen the way you looked at her money, her status, all the dinners, the trips, the gifts. You weren't grieving for her, Dad. You were grieving for what she gave you. And now she's gone, and I'm the one left to pick up the pieces." The air felt thick and electric. I could smell the faint tang of rain, the metal of the guardrail, the river's cold bitterness. My hands itched to reach out, but I didn't know where to start. Words felt useless. My heart ached seeing him so raw, so exposed, yet I knew I had to meet him where he was. "Marcus," I said slowly, my voice carrying over the wind, "I loved her more than anything. I loved her every single day. Yes, I've made mistakes. God knows I have. But I never put her money above her life. I loved her in ways you don't even see, in ways I couldn't show you or anyone else. And I'm broken without her, son. I'm broken too." He laughed bitterly, a sound that cut through the quiet like shattered glass. "Broken? You think saying that makes it okay? You think telling me you loved her fixes this? You weren't there when she needed you. You weren't there the last night, and now she's gone. And I'm supposed to believe your love can change that?" I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. "No, my words won't fix her being gone. I know that. But I'm here, Marcus. I'm still here. And I won't leave you alone on this bridge, physically or in life." For the first time I saw his jaw unclench slightly. His gaze softened, not entirely, but enough to let a sliver of reason seep in. The wind gusted, rattling the rusted guardrails, and a single raindrop hit my cheek. It felt like a signal, like the storm itself was listening to our conversation. He shifted, looking down at the river, his voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he admitted. "I don't know if I can even stand to look at you right now." I leaned forward, my hands finally resting lightly on his shoulders. "Then don't. Not yet. Just hear me. Let me try. Let me show you that I'm not the man you think I am. Let me be honest for once. Completely. Not just with words, Marcus. With actions." He stayed silent, letting the rain begin in earnest, soaking through our coats. I could feel him trembling against me, not with fear this time, but with grief that had been building for months, years even, since Camille's death. The bridge, the river, the gray sky, they all felt suspended in this moment, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, vulnerable. "If you step out of this car, if you just leave me here, I won't stop you. But if you stay, if you really stay, maybe, just maybe, we can start over." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I didn't move to get out, didn't try to grab him. I just stayed, letting the rain wash over both of us, letting the silence speak, letting the river remind us that life goes on even after loss. For the first time since Camille died, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we weren't standing on the edge of destruction. Maybe we were standing on the edge of something else, a chance to rebuild what we had broken. The rain fell harder, a relentless drum on the roof of the car and the metal bridge. I could feel it soaking through the upholstery, dripping onto the floor, and yet neither of us moved. Marcus stayed rigid, his eyes fixed on the gray, churning water below. I wanted to reach out, to pull him into the warmth of the car, but I knew I couldn't force him. Not yet. This was his storm, and I had to let him navigate it. "Tell me everything," I said finally, my voice low but firm. "Everything you think I did. Everything you blame me for. No excuses, no holding back." He turned slowly, his dark eyes glinting like wet asphalt. "You remember the night she—" He stopped, swallowed, and stared down at his hands, shaking. "You left her at the hospital, alone." The words hit me harder than I expected. Alone. That one word carried a weight I could feel pressing into my chest. I had tried to be rational, tried to explain it away as necessity, as chaos, as fate, but hearing him say it, Marcus, my own son, made every rationalization feel hollow. "I didn't leave her alone," I said, my voice trembling despite myself. I thought she was stable. I thought the nurses—" "They were busy, Dad," Marcus snapped, cutting me off. "Busy with other patients. And you? You went home. You went home and left her. And I sat there in the waiting room, listening to every beep, every monitor, wondering if she was still alive. And she died while you were gone." I flinched, the words stabbing straight through me. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I couldn't. Not in front of him. The truth, ugly and raw, was laid bare between us. And I realized, painfully, that no amount of justification would erase the memory etched into his mind. The car was filled with the sound of rain pounding, the occasional drip from the ceiling, and the low hum of the engine still running. Marcus's chest rose and fell rapidly, his hands clenching the steering wheel like it could anchor him to reality. "I should hate you," he whispered after a long pause. "I should hate you for everything. But I don't. I just want to understand. I want to know why you didn't fight harder, why you let her go, why you let her die like that." The words shook me. I reached across the center console, my hand hovering above his, trembling. "Marcus, I fought every damn second. I tried. I argued with the doctors. I begged for her care. I sat there and watched her slip away because there was nothing more I could do. Nothing. And I've hated myself every day since." His eyes filled with tears now, and for a moment I saw the little boy he had been, the boy who had clung to Camille's hand, who had looked to me for protection, who had believed we were invincible. That boy was still there, buried under the layers of anger, grief, and betrayal. "I need you to know something," I continued, my voice breaking. "I never stopped loving her. Not once. Every choice I made, every second I spent with her, was out of love. I failed her, yes, but I loved her more than life itself. And I love you too, Marcus. I always have, and I always will." He looked away, staring at the river, and the storm seemed to echo our pain. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the water in stark white flashes. I could feel the electricity in the air, a wild, raw energy that mirrored the turmoil inside us. Finally he spoke, quieter this time. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but maybe we can start with honesty. No more lies, no more pretending. I need to hear it from you. Everything. The truth about her, about us, about everything. I nodded, the tension in my shoulders easing just slightly. Then I'll tell you. Every truth, every mistake. You'll know everything, Marcus. And if it's too much, we'll face it together. The rain continued to fall, drumming a relentless rhythm, washing over the car, over the bridge, over the two of us. For the first time since Camille's death, I felt a glimmer of hope, not for her, not for what we lost, but for the fragile, fragile possibility of a future where we could both survive this, where we could both find a way to live again. And in that moment, I realized the edge of the bridge was no longer a place of despair. It was a place of reckoning, a place where the past met the present, and where my son and I could finally begin to rebuild what we had lost. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the bridge still gleamed wet under the gray sky, slick and reflective. I could see Marcus's reflection in the windshield, distorted, shaking with every raindrop that ran down the glass. His eyes were dark, hollowed with exhaustion, but sharp, like they were trying to carve the truth out of me with nothing but sheer will. "Start from the beginning," he said finally, his voice low, almost brittle. "Tell me everything, Dad. No gaps, no lies." I nodded, my hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. I could feel my chest tightening with every heartbeat, but I knew I had no choice. The truth had been waiting, a pressure building inside me for years, and now it demanded release. "It started long before the accident," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "Camille and we weren't just two people in love. We were two people trying to survive the weight of life. Money, power, appearances. We played our parts well, but it wasn't always real. I loved her, yes, but I made mistakes. Big ones. I hid things from her, Marcus. Things I thought she'd never find out about. But they were there, poisoning the foundation of everything we built." He didn't interrupt. His fingers drummed on the dashboard, a rapid, nervous rhythm. I could see the way his jaw clenched, the tension in his shoulders, the storm raging inside him mirrored by the one above us. "When she got sick, it wasn't just the illness," I said, my throat tightening. "It was everything else. The stress, the pressure from her family, the legal battles, the money. She fought every day to keep us together, to keep our family intact, but I wasn't strong enough. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I let her shoulder more than she should have had to. I let her down when she needed me most." The drizzle turned to a gentle patter now, washing over the car and the bridge like a cleansing. Marcus finally spoke, his voice softer, tinged with hurt. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me help her?" I swallowed hard. "Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I let you in, you'd see how weak I really am. Afraid that if I shared the burden, it would break you too. I thought I could protect you by carrying it alone, but all I did was build a wall between us." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. But Marcus didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He just listened, letting the rain and my confession fill the space between us. "There's more," I said, my voice cracking now. "The night she died, I was there, yes, but I failed her. I argued with the doctors over every detail, begged them to do more, stayed by her side as long as I could, but in the end, it wasn't enough. I watched her slip away, Marcus. I watched your mother die, and I couldn't save her, and I've carried that guilt every single day." Marcus's head dropped, and I could hear the catch in his breath. I thought you didn't care," he whispered. "I thought you were just happy she was gone." "No," I said, reaching for his hand, finally bridging the distance between us. "Never. I've hated myself every day for not being enough, for letting you see me as someone who didn't care. I loved her. I love you. And I've been trying to survive the weight of losing her while protecting you from the same pain." He looked at me then, tears streaking down his cheeks, the storm in his eyes finally breaking into raw grief. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," he admitted. "I don't know if I even want to. But hearing this, Maybe it helps. Maybe it's a start. I nodded, letting his words sink in. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the bridge glistening, reflecting the soft light of the morning. For the first time, I felt the weight in my chest lift slightly. Not gone, but lighter, shared. And I realized that the bridge, the edge, the threat of despair, it had been a place of truth all along. A place where we could either fall apart or start to rebuild. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, and said, "We'll rebuild, Marcus. One step at a time. Together. I promise." He didn't answer immediately. He just rested his head against the steering wheel, letting the silence stretch between us. But this silence wasn't empty. It was full of possibility, of fragile hope. For the first time since Camille's death, I felt it too. And in that quiet, soaked moment on the deserted bridge, I realized we weren't just surviving anymore. Maybe we could live. The bridge felt different now. The rain had stopped entirely, leaving puddles that mirrored the gray sky and the twisted girders above. I could hear the distant hum of the city, faint but relentless. A reminder that life outside this place didn't stop for grief, for secrets, for loss. Marcus was quiet, leaning back in the seat, his face still wet from tears. I didn't move to speak immediately. I let him sit with his emotions, knowing any rush would undo what we'd just begun to rebuild. Then, the sound of a car approaching broke the fragile calm. Not a city car, but something heavy, low, black, rolling down the deserted road like it knew its prey. Marcus stiffened immediately, hands tightening on the dashboard, his head snapping toward the sound. "Who the hell is that?" he whispered. I didn't answer right away. My instincts told me to stay calm, to watch. The car slowed as it neared the bridge, a sleek black sedan that looked out of place on this forgotten stretch of road. I recognized the aura immediately, the sharp scent of power and wealth clinging to it, the way it seemed to command attention even without headlights. As it stopped a few yards away, a figure stepped out, tall, sharply dressed, sunglasses despite the overcast light. My chest tightened, old instincts from years of corporate battles and personal mistakes kicking in. This wasn't coincidence. Nothing ever was anymore. Marcus shifted, his voice low but wary. "Dad, who is that?" I swallowed hard. An old friend, or maybe an enemy. Hard to tell sometimes. The man's eyes scanned the bridge before settling on us. He smiled, not kindly but with an edge. A predator's amusement. Well, he said, his voice smooth, calculated. "Didn't expect to find the two of you here? Seems you've been busy." I tightened my grip on the wheel. "You shouldn't be here," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "This is private." "Oh, I think not," he replied, stepping closer. "Private is a luxury for people who don't have secrets buried deep enough to ruin them." Camille's death, quite the spectacle, wasn't it? Marcus flinched. His hand went to my shoulder instinctively. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. Not now. "You've been hiding a lot, haven't you?" the man continued, circling the car like a shark sizing up prey. "And your little boy here, he's starting to see through the cracks. Dangerous, isn't it?" I could feel the tension coil in Marcus like a spring about to snap. I knew I had to protect him, but I also knew I couldn't run from this. Not anymore. "I don't know what you want," I said, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "If it's to hurt us, you're too late. We've seen the edge, and we're still here." He chuckled, dark and low. "Oh, you misunderstand. I don't want to hurt you. Not yet. I want the truth. Camille had things she never told you about, things that could ruin everything you think you know. And your son," he added, glancing at Marcus, "he's about to find out just how deep this goes." Marcus's face went pale, his fists clenched tighter. "What do you mean?" he demanded, voice trembling with anger and fear. I exhaled slowly, realizing that the fragile bridge of trust Marcus and I had started to build might be about to collapse under the weight of this new storm. "We'll face it together," I said quietly, my hand squeezing his. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The man smiled again, stepping back into the shadows. "Enjoy the calm while it lasts. Some truths aren't meant to be shared gently. They hit like a hammer, and sometimes even the strongest can't withstand the impact." With that, He got back in his car and disappeared into the misty road behind him, leaving us in silence, broken only by the distant murmur of the river. Marcus stared after him wide-eyed, his chest heaving. I placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tremor in his body. "This isn't the end," I said. "Not yet, but it will test us. It will push us, and we'll either break or we'll survive. And if we survive, we'll be stronger than ever before." Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. His jaw tightened, a mix of fear and determination crossing his face. I knew in that moment that he understood what I meant. The edge wasn't behind us, and the real reckoning was only beginning. The bridge stretched on, wet and glimmering, the river beneath dark and relentless. For the first time since Camille's death, I realized that survival wasn't enough anymore. We had to fight, for the truth, for each other, for the future we had barely begun to imagine. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the bridge slick and reflective under a pale, brooding sky. The river below flowed silently, dark and unyielding, a mirror to the chaos building inside me and Marcus. He sat stiffly in the car, gripping the edge of the seat, eyes darting to the shadows where the black sedan had vanished. "I don't like this," he muttered, voice low. "Who the hell was that guy?" I leaned back, running my hand across my face. Someone from Camille's past. Someone who knew things I didn't, and maybe things I shouldn't have known either. "He's testing us." Marcus's fists clenched. "Testing us? Dad, I'm tired of tests. I'm tired of secrets. I want to know the truth. Now, not some cryptic warning." I nodded slowly, understanding that his anger was justified. "All right," I said, exhaling through my nose. "I'll tell you everything, but you have to promise to hear it all before you judge me, or anyone else. This isn't just about Camille or me. It's bigger than that. Much bigger." He didn't respond. He just stared at me, the storm in his eyes replaced by something raw, anticipation, dread, and the hunger for answers. I took a deep breath. "Camille had enemies," I began, my voice low, heavy. "People who wanted what she had, who wanted control over her wealth, her influence. Some of them were close, so close you wouldn't even suspect. And I was blind. I didn't see the danger until it was too late." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Enemies? What are you talking about?" I leaned forward, gripping the wheel tightly. "She had partners in her companies, people she trusted. She confided in me about threats, about someone trying to manipulate her, to take her empire piece by piece. I promised her I would protect her. I thought I was." He scoffed, anger flashing across his face. "You thought you were protecting her? You couldn't even protect her life. She's gone, Dad." I flinched at the rawness of his voice but pushed on. "I failed her in the hospital, yes, but before that, there were things I did behind the scenes. I tracked suspicious transactions, intercepted calls, confronted people she trusted blindly. I thought I could control it all. I thought I could save her. But the truth was worse than I imagined." Marcus leaned closer, voice shaking. "What truth?" "The man in the car," I said quietly. "He's one of them. One of the people who had their claws in Camille's life. He's the reason she never told me everything. He threatened her, manipulated her, and in the end, he profited from her death. And he's coming back for us now. He wants answers. He wants leverage. And he wants me to fail him." Marcus's hands clenched the seat again, white-knuckled. "And what? You're just going to let him? Just sit here like a damn target?" I shook my head. "No, we fight, but we fight smart. We use what we know, and we protect each other. That's the only way we survive this. Together." He didn't speak for a moment. I could feel the weight of my words sinking in, the realization of danger settling over him like a storm cloud. "I can't believe she kept all this from us," he muttered finally. "I can't believe you didn't tell me." "I tried to shield you," I admitted. "I thought I could keep you safe by hiding the truth, but hiding it only made it worse. Now, we have to face it head on." The wind picked up, rattling the rusted guardrails and sending a chill down my spine. The bridge seemed to groan beneath us, a living thing aware of the tension in the air. Marcus's jaw tightened, and for the first time since Camille died, I saw a spark of the man he could become. a man capable of facing darkness without flinching. "All right," he said finally, voice firm. "We face it. Together. No more running, no more hiding." I nodded, relief and pride mingling with fear. "Together," I agreed. As we sat there, rain-soaked and tense, the sun broke through the clouds in thin, uncertain streaks. The light reflected off the water, casting a fragile glow across the bridge. And in that moment, I knew the reckoning wasn't behind us. The storm was just beginning. But for the first time, I wasn't alone. And Marcus, my son, he wasn't just standing with me. He was ready. We had the edge beneath our feet, the river below, and the shadow of our enemies closing in. But we had each other. And sometimes, that was enough to survive anything. The sun had broken through the clouds, but the bridge still felt like a liminal space, a place suspended between past and future, grief and action. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, hands still white-knuckled on the dashboard, his face tense but focused. I could feel the pulse of adrenaline in both of us, a mix of fear, anger, and the need to act. "Dad," he said finally, voice low, almost a growl, "we can't just sit here and wait for him to come back. He knows we're vulnerable. He knows we're scared, and he'll use it." I nodded, rubbing my hands over my face. "You're right, but we need a plan, a real one. If we make a mistake now, it could cost us everything. Our lives, our freedom, even what's left of Camille's legacy." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Then we start by finding him. No more hiding, no more guessing. If he wants war, we'll give him war. But on our terms." The river below churned silently, dark and indifferent, as if mocking the intensity of our resolve. I could smell the wet asphalt and the faint metallic tang of rust from the bridge railing. Every instinct I had screamed that danger was closer than it seemed. And it was. We didn't have to wait long. A black sedan appeared again, moving slow, deliberate, lights off. It circled the bridge once, then stopped at a distance, engine humming quietly. The driver stepped out, the same sharp silhouette from before, calm, collected, predatory. Marcus leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "There he is. Now what?" I took a deep breath. "Now, we watch. We don't make the first move. He wants fear, he wants reaction. We don't give it to him." The man stepped closer to the edge of the bridge, just far enough to be seen but still maintaining control of the space. "I see you've made your choice," he called, voice smooth, cutting through the early morning air. "Face the truth, or run. Your call." Marcus slammed his fist onto the dashboard, startling me. "I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. You think I don't see what you did? You think I don't know why why she's gone? You think I won't fight back?" The man chuckled, almost impressed. "Spirited. I like that. But spirit alone doesn't win battles." I reached for Marcus's shoulder, grounding him. "Stay calm. Let him underestimate us. That's our advantage. We don't attack yet. We gather information. We find out what he wants and why. Then we strike." He didn't respond immediately, but the tension in his body eased slightly. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement that we were in this together. The man in black circled the car slowly, eyes never leaving ours. "You have no idea what's coming," he said finally, voice low, menacing. "Camille's death was only the beginning. The secrets she kept, the people she trusted, they're all connected. And you, sitting there, pretending you can survive this, are about to learn just how little control you really have." I swallowed hard, feeling a cold bead of sweat slide down my neck. "Marcus," I whispered, "listen to me. Everything he just said, it's not the whole story. Camille protected us in ways we didn't even understand. We have to find those connections. We have to use them. That's our only chance." He exhaled sharply, determination settling over his features. "Then we start now. We find him. We trace everything he touches, and we make sure he knows. He picked the wrong people to threaten, the wrong family." The man finally retreated, slipping back into the shadows, leaving us on the bridge alone. The river below seemed quieter now, as if waiting for the storm we were about to unleash. I turned to Marcus, seeing the mix of fear and resolve in his eyes. He was ready to face the darkness Camille had left behind, ready to fight for what was ours. And I realized in that soaked, tense moment on the bridge that survival wasn't enough anymore. We had to win, not just for Camille, not just for ourselves, but for the life we still had a chance to claim from the shadows she left behind. We sat there for a long moment, the silence heavy, but different now. It was no longer a silence of grief. It was a silence of preparation. The first move had been made, and the game had begun. Night fell quickly over the city. The kind of darkness that doesn't just hide things, it swallows them whole. Marcus and I had parked a few blocks away from the old warehouse district, a place Camille had once mentioned in passing, a location tied to some of her last deals, the ones the man in black had hinted at. The streets were empty, wet from an earlier drizzle, neon signs flickering and reflecting in puddles. Every shadow felt alive, moving just out of the corner of my eye. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked, voice tight. His hands gripped the steering wheel like it could shield him from whatever was waiting ahead. I nodded, though my chest was pounding. "We don't have a choice. He's watching us, testing us. We make the first move, we take control of the situation. That's the only way we survive this." Marcus exhaled sharply, then opened the car door. The night air hit him like ice, and I followed, adjusting the coat around my shoulders. We moved toward the warehouse slowly, shadows stretching long and thin across the cracked pavement. The smell of damp concrete and rust filled the air. As we approached, I saw him, standing at the edge of the loading dock, the same predator from the bridge. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just waited. The faint light from the warehouse behind him cut across his face, sharp angles and a calculating gaze. "Welcome," he said, his voice smooth, almost mocking. "I've been expecting you." Marcus stepped forward instinctively, but I put a hand on his shoulder. "Wait, let me do the talking first." He turned to me, eyes blazing. "We're done waiting, Dad. I'm done letting him intimidate us. We face him now." I nodded, knowing he was right. Fear had no place here. Not anymore. "All right," I said, my voice low but steady. "Let's get this over with." We stepped onto the loading dock, the wooden boards creaking under our weight. The man in black didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. "I see your boy's grown," he said, glancing at Marcus. "Strong, determined, angry. You've raised him well, but anger alone won't save you." "I don't need to be saved," Marcus said, voice steady. "I need answers, and I'm done being afraid." I felt a surge of pride, but also caution. The man in black smiled, stepping closer. "Answers?" he asked. "I can give you answers, but you might not like what you hear." I glanced at Marcus. He nodded slightly, urging me silently to continue. "Then tell us," I said. "Everything. Camille's death, your involvement, the people she trusted, every last detail." He chuckled, a sound like knives scraping metal. "Very well. Camille was smart, careful, but even she had blind spots. There were people in her life, people who wanted her empire, and she, in her perfection, didn't see who she could trust. I saw it. I exploited it. And when the opportunity came, I made sure she couldn't stop me." Marcus's fists clenched. "You killed her," he said, voice shaking. "You're responsible for her death." "I didn't lift a finger," the man said smoothly. "Not physically, but I set everything in motion. Every betrayal, every manipulation, all roads led to that hospital. And I watched. Oh, I watched. And I waited. And you," he said, glancing at me, "stood by, thinking you were protecting her. Pathetic, really?" I felt my blood boil, my fists tightening. "You'll pay for this," I said, voice cold. "You'll regret every second you think you're untouchable." He smiled again, stepping back into the shadows, merging with the darkness. "Careful what you wish for," he said. "The next time we meet, one of you won't make it out alive." The warehouse doors slammed behind him, echoing through the empty district. Marcus and I stood there, drenched in adrenaline, the night around us suddenly feeling colder, more dangerous. The threat was real. The enemy was closer than we thought, smarter than we imagined, but we were ready. Fear had sharpened our focus, grief had tempered our resolve, and anger had fueled our courage. Camille's death was just the beginning, and Marcus and I, we were no longer just surviving. We were preparing to fight. The night stretched on, silent but electric, and I realized one thing with chilling clarity. The storm wasn't coming. The storm was already here, and we were standing right in the center of it. The night after the warehouse confrontation, Marcus and I didn't sleep. The city around us felt smaller, darker, like every alley and street lamp could hide the man in black. Or worse. We drove through empty streets, tracing every lead Camille had left behind, piecing together names, dates, and accounts that suddenly made sense in the grim puzzle of her final months. "Dad," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "I keep thinking about what he said, about Camille's empire, about the people she trusted. Do you think she knew it would come to this?" I shook my head slowly. No, she didn't. She thought she was protecting us. She thought her secrets would keep us safe. But some truths, they're too big, too dangerous. And now, it's on us to finish what she started. We ended up at an old office building on the edge of the financial district, one Camille had mentioned in passing. It was abandoned, blinds torn, paint peeling, and yet there was an energy there, a pulse, like someone had been waiting. I could smell the faint coppery tang of old metal and dust in the air, the scent sharp against the damp chill outside. Marcus glanced at me, his hand brushing against the gun tucked under his jacket. "You ready?" I nodded. "Ready as we'll ever be. Stay close, watch every shadow, and trust your instincts." He's smart, Marcus. Smarter than anyone we've faced, and he won't hesitate. We slipped inside, careful, quiet. The wooden floors creaked under our weight, echoing through empty corridors. Each office was a tomb of forgotten papers, broken furniture, and the ghosts of deals long concluded. But there was a pattern. Files left intentionally, computers still logged in, evidence of Camille's last efforts to protect herself, and by extension, us. "This is it," I whispered, kneeling by a half-open file. "Camille's last notes. Look at this. She documented everything. Every transaction, every call, every threat. We just have to follow the trail." Marcus leaned over my shoulder, scanning quickly. His jaw clenched. "It's worse than I thought. These people, they weren't just after money. They were after control, power, and they didn't care who got hurt along the way." A sudden noise made us freeze, metal scraping against concrete, deliberate and slow. I motioned for Marcus to stay behind me. Shadows shifted near the stairwell. My pulse quickened. "Show yourself," I called, my voice steady though my chest hammered. A figure stepped from the darkness. Another man, not the same from the bridge, but sharp, cold, and dangerous. He held a file in his hand. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice calm but deadly. "Your curiosity will cost you." Marcus tightened his grip on his gun. "We're not leaving until we know the truth," he said. His voice carried the edge of steel that came from grief, anger, and the need for justice. The man smirked. "Brave, foolish. Camille underestimated you both. But now, you're in the shadows, and shadows have teeth." Before we could react, he dashed toward the stairwell. I grabbed Marcus, pulling him back behind a steel beam, our hearts pounding. We could hear his footsteps, deliberate, echoing through the hollow building, then stopping, waiting, calculating. Marcus whispered, "We need to follow him, Dad. We can't let him escape. He's part of all this." I nodded, heart hammering in my chest. "But we do it smart, quietly, together, one step at a time." The two of us moved deeper into the shadows, the building closing around us like a living thing. Each hallway felt endless, each creak of the floor a potential threat. And yet, we weren't just hunting. We were learning, following the trail Camille had left, understanding the depth of the conspiracy she had tried to protect us from. And then, in a small office at the far end, we found it, the first tangible proof of her final battle. Files stacked meticulously, USB drives hidden in plain sight, emails printed and left for us. Her handwriting scrawled across the margins, notes to herself, warnings, strategies. Marcus picked one up, staring at it with wide eyes. "She left this for us. All of it. She knew we'd have to finish this." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, and we will. But we have to be careful. Every move we make from here on out, it's a trap, a chessboard, and we're finally ready to play." Outside, the city slept unaware, indifferent to the war that had just begun inside this crumbling building. Inside, Marcus and I felt alive, not just surviving, but sharpening, learning, and preparing. Camille's death had been the first storm. What was coming now would be the hurricane. The files we found were just the beginning. Marcus and I spent hours going through them in that abandoned office, the fluorescent lights flickering above, dust motes dancing like tiny specters in the pale glow. Camille had left us a map of her enemies, a web of people, accounts, shell companies, and communications. Every detail pointed to a network that ran deeper than we imagined, a network that had her, and now us, in its crosshairs. "I can't believe she hid all this from us," Marcus muttered, running his hands through his hair. "All these people, all these threats, and we're just supposed to clean it up?" I rubbed my forehead. "She didn't want us in danger. She thought she could protect us by keeping us in the dark. But now, Marcus, it's our turn. We have to finish what she started. And we do it carefully, methodically." We made a list. Names, addresses, connections. Each one represented a move in a game that had already been set in motion. The man in black had been only the first piece on the board. Now we had to anticipate every move, understand every connection, and strike when the time was right. By midnight, we were on the move. The city was dark and quiet, the streets slick with rain, neon signs flickering in puddles like signals. Our first target was a mid-level operative who had been quietly siphoning funds from Camille's companies, feeding information to the man in black. Marcus drove this time, the glow of the dashboard highlighting the determination in his eyes. "Are you sure this guy is alone?" he asked, voice low but steady. "I hope so," I replied. "If not, we'll deal with it. Quietly. We can't afford a scene. Not yet." We parked a few blocks away, moving on foot through the alleyways. Every sound, the distant wail of a siren, the drip of water from a broken gutter, the rustle of a stray cat, made us tense. The city felt alive, breathing around us, aware that we were hunting. The building was small, nondescript. A single light flickered in an office on the second floor. I gestured for Marcus to stay back, moving quietly to the front door. The lock clicked easily. I recognized the type from Camille's notes, and I slipped inside. The operative was there, hunched over a laptop, headphones on. He didn't notice me until I tapped the desk. He jumped, spinning around, eyes wide. "Who? What?" "Quiet," I said sharply, voice low but commanding. "We're not here to hurt you. Yet. We want answers." Marcus stepped forward, gun visible now, eyes blazing. "You've been helping him," Marcus said, voice hard. "Every transaction, every leak, every secret. You're going to tell us everything you know, or you're going to regret it." The man hesitated, sweat forming at his hairline. I can't. You don't understand. He'll kill me." I leaned closer, voice firm. "Then help us stop him before he gets the chance. Camille trusted us to clean this up. Now we're giving you a choice. Cooperate, or we take the consequences into our own hands." Marcus's presence was magnetic, controlled rage, grief, and intelligence all at once. The operative swallowed hard. Okay, I'll tell you everything, but it's worse than you think. He's not just taking money, he's planning something big, something that could destroy everything your wife built, everything you care about." I felt my stomach tighten. "Then we don't have time to waste," I said. "Tell us everything. Now." The man nodded, nervously pulling files and notes from drawers, showing us emails, account transfers, hidden contracts. Each revelation was more shocking than the last, layers of betrayal, manipulation, and criminal schemes that Camille had been fighting against silently, alone. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he read, but his jaw tightened with resolve. "We're not letting him win," he said finally. "Not Camille, not us. We end this, and we end it our way." The operative nodded, and for the first time I felt a flicker of hope. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were taking the fight to them. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the storm building in its shadows. Inside, Marcus and I were no longer just father and son grieving a loss. We were a team, hunters, strategists, and survivors, ready to take the war to the people who had destroyed Camille's life. and tried to destroy ours. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the adrenaline of purpose, the sharp edge of vengeance tempered by justice. The hunt had begun. We left the operative's cramped office with a folder of evidence and a plan that felt both fragile and fierce. The rain had stopped, but the city still smelled like wet concrete and old secrets. Marcus drove like a man who'd swallowed a live wire, hands tight on the wheel, jaw set, eyes on the road the way a hunter keeps his sights on prey. I sat beside him, the folder heavy on my knees, the papers inside promising revenge and danger in the same breath. "Where to?" he asked, voice low, controlled. "To Camille's accountant," I said. "If the money trail leads anywhere, it's through him. He's careful, too careful. If there's a ledger, he'll have notes." I could feel the determination in my chest like heat. Camille had left us a map of ruin. Now we had to follow the lines until they burned. We found the accountant's office in a glass tower that still pretended to be respectable in the washed-out dawn. The receptionist barely glanced up as Marcus signed our names. The waiting room smelled of stale coffee and lemon cleaner. My skin prickled noticing how sterile it all felt, how easy it would be to hide rot inside a glossy veneer. The accountant, a small man with hands that never stopped fidgeting, ushered us into a back office that was more archive than office. Boxes, labeled neatly, timelined like evidence. He tried to play ignorant at first, then nervous, then honest. The exact arc I'd watched on so many faces in my life when confrontation stripped the masks off. He handed us a thin notebook, leather soft with age. "She warned me," he said at last, voice trembling. "Said keep it off the books, keep it on paper. If anything happens, if she wanted this saved for family." Marcus opened it like a surgeon. His fingers found pages with numbers, annotations, shorthand names, and the sort of coded entries you only find when someone is trying to hide the truth in plain sight. There it was. Wire transfers, shell companies, invoices that bent reality. And interlined between the sums, Camille's cramped handwriting. Names, times, little arrows pointing like clues. "It ties him to the hospital," I said, reading aloud. "Insurance transfers, an administrator, bribes, and here, payments going to a consulting firm that doesn't exist. That's where the man in black launders money." Marcus's face drained. "Hospital admin," he repeated. "Camille died at the hospital. We get proof, we go to the press, we go to the authorities," I said. And for a moment the simplicity of the plan warmed me. Then the accountant's eyes darted. He swallowed. "You don't understand. If you expose them, they won't just lose money. They'll take everything. They won't stop at papers." His hand shook. "He has people." The words hung in the air like a threat. I looked at Marcus and saw the same calculus I felt. Expose the rot and risk everything, or bury the truth and live with the poison. Neither choice was clean. We left with photocopies, high on adrenaline. Marcus drove us out of the financial district and onto side streets where the city forgot you. I folded the photocopies close to my chest as though they were a warm thing. We needed allies, someone outside the system who could move pieces without being a piece himself. That's when the siren started, faint at first, then a keening that crawled up the back of my neck. We cursed, sped up, turned corners too sharp for comfort. Then, out of nowhere, headlights flared behind us, closer than they had the right to be. Black SUVs, too many of them for coincidence. "They found us," Marcus said, like a verdict. We pulled into an empty loading bay, breathing hard, the photocopies tremoring in my hands. 2 SUVs blocked both entrances like bookends. Men spilled out. No hesitation. Movements practiced. The suit of confidence that belongs to hired hands, and men who think fear is a weapon you can buy. "Get down!" a voice barked. Everything moved faster than thought. A man in tactical gear dove toward the passenger side. Another moved for the driver's door. I shoved Marcus down as the first round cracked the air, metal screaming. The smell of gunpowder was immediate and bitter. My ears rang. Rain, God of course, began again. A sharp percussion. We moved by instinct. Marcus twisted, rolled and returned fire in the only way he could. Pure adrenaline, clean aim born from months of rage burning steady. I had never held a gun with the intention I did in that moment. It wasn't about killing, it was about survival, about pulling my son through the teeth of this thing alive. We ducked behind the SUV's flanks, breath hot and ragged, the world reduced to muzzle flashes and the wet slap of rain on asphalt. One of their men made a run for the trunk with a duffel bag. Another circled toward the back of our car. I could see faces briefly, men whose lives drifted around the edges of other men's power. Paid, disposable. The firefight was short and ugly. Marcus and I moved like a single organism, his left eye, my right shoulder, and when the smoke cleared, two men lay still, non-moving. I did not look long. Mercy and horror both sat heavy in me. One of the attackers had a small patch sewn inside his jacket, a consulting firm name I'd seen in Camille's ledger. The circle closed faster than I wanted. We ran. We left the photocopies stuffed in a shoebox under a nearby dumpster and ran, hard, down alleys that smelled of rust and diesel, our breath a steam we couldn't afford. We ducked into a subway entrance, the noise and crowd swallowing us in relief sour waves. Marcus's knee bled where a ricochet had grazed him. He pressed his hand to it but didn't cry out. Pain didn't belong to us tonight. We made it to a motel with paint peeling like dried scabs. The clerk didn't ask questions. It was the kind of place where lives could be hidden without notarized permission. I tore open my jacket, got the shoebox, and we spread the papers on the bed under a single lamp. The photocopies were damp at the edges, but legible. The leather notebook was gone. Marcus looked at me, voice hollow with something like anger and something like fear. "They knew exactly where we were," he said. "How? The operatives? Were they turned? Were they playing us?" I thought of the operative who'd led us to the office hours earlier, the man who'd been sweating bullets and then cooperative. My gut stung with the possibility of betrayal. Either someone tipped them off, or we were always the bait. We worked through the night, stitching threads together. Hospital payments coded as consulting fees, shell companies named after the same consulting firm on the jackets of the shooters, transfers that landed in offshore accounts and reappeared as charitable donations to cover tracks. One name kept surfacing in multiple columns: Holloway Medical Administration. A node, not a person. But beneath that label, a handful of individuals who ran the machine. Then my phone buzzed once. I almost didn't pick it up, but Marcus's hand hovered like a burglar's shadow. The number was blocked. A voice, familiar and clinical, said, "You should have stayed at the bridge. Now you've forced my hand." The voice, no flourish, no menace, was the man in black. Behind the calm, I heard the thing he did with people. He made them small. "What do you want?" I asked, whatever of a man I still thought I was trying to hold together. "You've opened a door you can't close," he said. "You should have let sleeping things sleep. Instead, you climb the bed and burn the house down. For the boy's sake, walk away. For your wife's memory, stop digging." His line went dead. The lamp hummed. Rain splattered the window like a jury. We had a choice. We could run, get ourselves to someone, anyone, who could turn this into a legal fight with subpoenas and armored lawyers. Or we could go on the offensive, using what Camille had left to flush out the heart of the machine. Marcus looked at me. Blood and ink and grief had changed him. "We don't run," he said. "We make sure he can't walk away from this. We pull his people out by their roots." I thought of Camille's handwriting in that ledger, the quiet fury of a woman who'd planned for betrayal. I thought of the bridge, the river, the way Marcus had held me there like a verdict. I thought of the rifle cracks and the blood on the asphalt. "We need more than rage," I said. "We need leverage. We need a list of names, real people. We need to expose the administrator, the middlemen, the shell companies. We need someone with a platform who doesn't sleep with their fingers in other people's pockets." Marcus nodded. "The press, maybe a detective, maybe both. But first, find Holloway Medical's administrator. If we pull that thread, we pull the sweater apart." We started pulling. That night became a blur of calls, encrypted emails, dead-drop rendezvous with the accountant who'd refused to talk, until we threatened the only thing he feared: exposure. He gave us a name, Elias Rawlings, an administrator with a practiced smile and a foundation for children that smelled like charity on the surface, and ledger paper rot beneath. We had a lead, but the cost was obvious. Rawlings ran deep. The man in black had people, money, and the kind of backup that came from connections in white rooms full of velvet curtains. I lay awake on the motel bed while Marcus slept hard beside me, bandage sticky on his knee. The room was small, cheap, but it was ours for the moment, a scrap of safety in a city that had turned predatory. The photocopies sat on the nightstand like a small, burning altar. I touched them, felt the cheap paper edges, and thought of Camille's hands writing numbers nobody should have seen. I prayed, silently and clumsily, to whatever had been left of my faith, that we would survive long enough to see justice. Outside, the rain softened into a whisper. Inside, the bed creaked as Marcus turned. He mumbled, half asleep, a childish thing, Camille's name, and I answered with the truth we both needed. "We finished what she started," I said. "We don't stop now." He didn't wake. I watched him sleep, the flush of youth and hurt quiet on his face. For a second I let myself be simply his father. Then the thought of Rawlings, of Holloway Medical, of the man in black's flat voice snapped me back. Morning would mean plans. It would mean tracking Rawlings, finding his children's charity gala where he smiled for cameras, where donors applauded, where evidence could be slipped under the noses of the righteous. It would mean risking public scenes, risking bodies, risking everything. I thought of the bridge where Marcus made me almost jump, and how close we'd come to losing everything without so much as a fight. I thought of Camille's handwriting in that leather book, hidden and patient, waiting to be read. The river she'd drowned in was a slow liar. It swallowed more than water. But Camille, God Camille, had left a map. She had given us the means to fight her enemies on paper, and men like me and Marcus in the street. We would pull at the thread of Rawlings, and if the sweater unraveled, it would expose the man in black. And if it didn't, if the machine was too big, too connected, then we would burn it down until there was nothing left to hide in the ashes. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the choice, the weight of the papers, and the heavier weight of being a father who had to teach his son how to survive when the world turned predatory. When the alarm on Marcus's phone went off, he woke with the look of a man who'd already decided. He reached for the photocopies, his fingers brushing mine. "No more bridges," he said quietly. "We build something that stands." I nodded, feeling a fierce, dangerous pride. We build it from truth, paper and bone. And with that, we packed the photocopies away, slid into our clothes, and walked out into a dawn that smelled like rain and war. The charity gala smelled like citrus perfume and money. Men in tuxes laughed too loudly. Women in silk clinked glasses like fragile bells. Elias Rawlings smiled from the dais. Every camera flashed a little knife. Marcus and I walked in like ghosts. Clean tuxes, tired eyes, holding the photocopies hidden in a slim portfolio beneath my coat. We moved through the crowd in silence. The place was all lacquer and laughter, a stage where Rawlings played saint and hid the ledger of sins. I watched him shake hands, plant kisses, promise futures. Every smile was a ledger entry I wanted to tear out. Marcus leaned in, whispering, "Find him. Distract. I'll get to the back office." His voice was flat, businesslike. The plan was small, surgical. That's how we'd keep it clean. He slipped away like smoke. I approached Rawlings at the hors d'oeuvres table. A polite nod, a compliment about the foundation. He gave me the charity smile. I gave him a measured grief. My hand brushed his, felt the warm lie of his skin. I could see the way his handlers hovered like buzzards. "Your wife was a remarkable woman," he said, practiced sympathy. "Tragic?" He watched my reaction as if testing the depth of my wound. "Tragic for more than one reason," I answered, quiet. "You've done well at disguising what you do." His eyes flashed with something dangerous, respect or threat. It was hard to tell. "Bold man," he said. "Be careful how you burn bridges." That was when the lights popped, brief and electric. A blackout, perfectly timed. Screams, a scramble for light. In the confusion, I slipped away to the service corridor like a shadow. Marcus met me there, portfolio in hand. Blood on his cuff from a scrape nobody had noticed. He nodded once. He'd been to the back room, seen files, footage. proof enough to make Rawlings sweat. But downstairs in the break room, a man waited with a cigarette already ash-tipped and a smile that knew too much. It was a trap, one we'd walked into because anger sometimes smells like courage. We didn't run. We didn't beg. We left with what we could carry: a thumb drive, a printed list, and the knowledge that Rawlings would hunt us harder now. On the street, the night air hit like relief and a warning. Marcus wrapped his arm around my shoulder. "Smaller moves," he said. "Punches that don't leave us bleeding on the floor." I looked at him, my son, my brother in arms, and felt the small, stubborn warmth of it. "Then we keep moving," I said. Quiet as the river, steady as the tide. We didn't get home till dawn. The city was yawning awake, indifferent to the small wars that had been waged under its skin. Marcus walked like a man who'd slept with one eye open, each step careful, measured. I could see the gala's dust on his shoes and the thin white line of the bandage at his wrist. He kept checking the thumb drive like it might vanish if he blinked. "We can't release this yet," I said, folding the portfolio so the edges didn't show. "Rawlings will bury it. He has lawyers, friends, favors. We need a way to make it impossible for them to sweep under the rug." Marcus sat at the kitchen table, the first time the small apartment felt like a war room. He rubbed his forehead, tired, dangerous in the way grief sharpens a man. "We need witnesses, independence, a reporter who doesn't sell out, and a cop who'll do the right thing if you pay him in facts instead of favors." I thought of the operative, the accountant, Camille's tiny leather book gone but not forgotten. There's a detective, Olivia Hayes. She's clean. Hard to get, but she hates men like Rawlings. Camille once mentioned her name. If we find her, she'll know how to move without getting bought. Marcus nodded. "Call her, quietly. We meet in public. No pins, no traps. If she's out, we go public. If she isn't, we build another way." I made the call. Hayes's voice was low and skeptical, the kind of tone that makes liars sweat. She agreed to meet at a diner by the interstate. Neutral ground, full of witnesses, cheap coffee, and people too busy to pry. She arrived sharp as a tack, backbone visible through her coat. We slid the thumb drive across the table while she ate, watching the way her eyes narrowed as she scanned. When she finished, she closed her jaw and said one thing: "You bring me proof. I bring you a warrant you can hang on a hanger in front of the press. But cross me, and there's no jury in the country that'll listen to you." Her words were an axe and a promise. We left with a plan. Leaked the files to a local investigative reporter at a paper Hayes trusted, while she moved to get a court order to freeze the accounts. Legal and journalistic pressure at once. We had to be surgical. Timing was everything. 2 nights later, there was movement. The reporter called, a husky whisper of excitement. He had a meeting set, cameras ready, an editor who loved a good takedown. Hayes had a subpoena in motion. For the first time since Camille died, I tasted something that wasn't only fear, it was the copper tang of hope. Rawlings didn't wait. He struck in the small hours. Our car tires slashed, the apartment door rifled through, drawers tossed like they were small, useless skeletons. They left a card on the table, a black card with the Man in Black's logo and 3 words: "Stay or burn." Marcus lifted the card with shaking fingers and burned it in the sink, watching the ash float down the drain like a bad prayer. "They want to scare us," he said. "So they do. We let them feel it, and then we hit them where it hurts." Hayes moved fast. Subpoenas were served. The reporter's story ran with the first taste of evidence. Small, damning, public. Rawlings responded with denials and lawyers and a blizzard of PR, but the seed was planted. Donors pulled back. Board members called emergency meetings. That night, after the story dropped, someone tried to corner us in the building's stairwell. 2 men, faces blank with the assurance of hired violence. Marcus met them like he'd been waiting his whole life. The fight was short, clumsy, desperate, but we walked away with bruises and a certainty. We were not invisible. They would come again, harder. We would have to be smarter. We patched up, we sharpened plans, and we learned to sleep in shifts. Camille's ledger had brought us a path out of the dark, but every step forward frayed another thread. Rawlings had money and men. We had truth and a cop who didn't care for the veneer of the powerful. Before bed, Marcus stood by the window looking out over the river that had once been a threat, and now felt like a spine to hold on to. "One more move," he said quietly. "Expose Rawlings, and then we find the man in black. We cut the head off the snake." I put my hand on his shoulder, feeling the steady, dangerous hum beneath his skin. "We do it right. We don't play their game. We make them play ours." He nodded, exhausted but resolute. In the corner of the room, the photocopies lay like a small, bruised Bible. We had traded grief for a roadmap, and now the city would decide if we were brave enough to follow it to its end. They came at dawn, the kind of dawn that didn't bother with soft light, just a hard slice of winter sun that showed everything for what it was. Olivia Hayes moved like she owned the courthouse. Decisive, clean, impossible to rattle. The reporter had his camera crew outside, quiet and professional, waiting for the exact second the warrants were served. Marcus and I stood on the steps, our breath fogging in the cold, the photocopies and thumb drive tucked in a sealed envelope in my jacket like a pact. We watched the raid on a looped feed in a conference room that smelled like old coffee and new decisions. Armed officers moved through Rawlings's foundation offices like a scalpel, precise. Hayes read them the charges: fraud, bribery, conspiracy to commit medical fraud, obstruction. The Holloway Medical Administrator's name, Elias Rawlings, echoed across the room with the force of a verdict. He was cuffed, still wearing his charity pin, still trying to smile. That smile broke when they found the hidden accounts, the consulting firm invoices, the video logs of payments being exchanged in parking garages, paper and pixels, the things Camille had trusted to record truth, had done what bullets and threats could not. But the man in black, the one who'd smoothed his voice on the bridge and promised us darkness, that man was smarter. He'd been the shadow that washed Elias with grease and moved men into place. Hayes had a way of hunting shadows, though. She'd followed the consulting trail, the shell companies, the courier routes. A single name kept surfacing as the fixer behind the fixer. Phone records, an old address, a parking garage video where the man in black, Victor Hale, walked with confidence and left with money. When they hauled Hale out that morning, he still tried to bargain with the kind of calm that had unnerved us on the bridge. He was tired, or maybe he'd just miscalculated how many people Camille's notebooks would bring to the light. Watching them led out in handcuffs felt unreal, like a dream stitched from revenge and paperwork. Marcus didn't cheer. He didn't have to. The city outside the glass hummed the same indifferent song, but inside me something uncoiled, a tension that had sat on my ribs for months. Justice arrived in paperwork and handcuffs, not in the cinematic explosion I'd once imagined. That was okay. It was cleaner. It was enough. They brought cameras into Hayes' office after the arrests. The reporter wanted a quote. The network wanted a soundbite. I thought about saying something fierce, something that would burn Hale's name into the public memory. Instead, I looked at Marcus. He was thinner somehow, older in a way the courthouse sun had carved into him. He met my eyes and nodded like a captain acknowledging a ship saved from rocks. "We did this for her," he said quietly. "We did this for us," I answered. The trials came fast after the arrests. Rawlings and Hale campaigned with lawyers and denials, but the paper trail Camille had left, the testimony from the operative who flipped, the ledger from the accountant, they were stitches in a seam that wouldn't hold. Rawlings was convicted. Hale took a plea when the evidence got too close to his insurers. The charges carried weight: time, fines, the dismantling of the consulting empire that had run like rot through hospitals and foundations. But the legal victories were only half the story. There were smaller reckonings. Donors pulled support from corrupted charities. The hospital administration was purged, and Holloway Medical's board resigned in the kind of shame that can't be paid off with apologies. A few men we'd never hear of again lost the comfortable edges of their lives. The public read the headlines and moved on. That's how the world works. But Marcus and I kept the ledger pages in a frame at home. Camille's sharp handwriting for years of silence finally lit. We went to the bridge after the last trial, when the headlines had cooled and the press vans were gone. The river moved slow beneath us, patient and indifferent as always. The wind smelled of iron and something clean, new snow maybe, or just the way winter cleans things by making them smaller. Marcus parked like he did the first time, hands steady. No threats, no black sedans, just us and the long quiet. I opened the car door and stood with the cool air wrapping around me. The bridge felt like an old scar that had finally finished hurting. Marcus leaned against the guardrail, the city a soft blur behind him. He looked at me then, and for the first time since Camille's funeral, I didn't see accusation in his eyes. I saw a man who'd been forged in loss and had come out something close to whole. "I watched you on the stand," he said. "You didn't try to be a victim. You faced it." "I had to," I said. "I wanted you to see me stand up for something that wasn't just me. For her. For us." He exhaled, a breath that carried everything we hadn't said. "I thought I wanted you to jump here that day, to make you feel everything I felt. But what I wanted more was for you to stand and own it, to not hide, to show me that whatever you'd done, you were still my father." I felt a sudden, ridiculous laugh leak out of me, then a tremor of tears behind my eyes. "I was a coward in some things," I admitted. "I made awful choices, but none of them were because I didn't love her or you. I kept thinking I could fix things alone." Marcus turned, an almost smile carving his face. "You're not alone. Not anymore. We have work to do. Camille's foundation needs real leaders. People who'll keep her name from being a brand for thieves. People who'll make good on what she meant to do." We stood there for a long time, listening to the river and the way the city breathed. The bridge that had been a threat earlier was now a marker, an edge crossed. We were different men. The scars were real, but they were mapped now, visible and navigable. "I want to help," Marcus said finally. "Not with your money, with the work, with the people. I don't want this to be revenge. I want it to be better." "Then we make it better," I said. "We build something that won't be easy to corrupt. We do it together. We do it right." We walked away from the guardrail and down the other side of the bridge. The city opened up to us, not as enemy, but as the place where we would live with the choices we had made. We had lost Camille in ways that would always hollow us, but we had found in that loss a map and a mission. The ledger pages in their frame wouldn't bring her back. Nothing would. But they kept her voice alive, sharp, practical, unforgiving in ways that cut straight to the root. Back at home, we began the work Camille had started. We met with staff, rewrote oversight policies, replaced executives, and built a board that cared more about kids in clinics than about glossy press releases. Marcus took charge of outreach, using the anger that had sharpened him into something constructive. He was good, brutally honest, stubborn, and tireless. I settled into a role that felt like penance. Head of the compliance committee, the man who read the books until they made sense and refused to let anyone hide. There were nights I still woke up with the taste of river water in my mouth and the memory of a black sedan's headlights. There were days when the courtroom replayed itself in my head, when the man in black's voice threaded through my thoughts. But those moments were losing strength to other things. A report that found the Foundation's literacy program had added 5,000 kids to its rosters. A call from a mother thanking us for a clinic that hadn't existed before. Marcus laughing at some small, ridiculous joke. On the anniversary of Camille's death, we went back to the cemetery. The snow was fresh and light, the kind that softens edges. I laid a hand on her headstone, cold and slightly rough. Marcus stood beside me, hands in his pockets, a quiet soldier at my side. We didn't speak about the bridge or the trials. We didn't have to. The silence was full. "I'm sorry," I said then, the words small but true. "For everything I couldn't fix." He put his hand on mine, steady and real. "We fixed what we could," he said. "We made sure she mattered. That's enough. Enough." It wasn't a grand word. It wasn't absolution. But it was a start. We had walked from the edge and come back with truth in our pockets, scars on our skin, and a way forward that didn't need to erase the past to be honest about it. We left the cemetery together, shoulders close, the city waiting for us like an unfinished promise. The ledger in our living room glowed in its frame under the lamplight, a reminder that truth, paper and ink, could change the course of men who thought themselves untouchable. Outside, the night air smelled like rain even when it hadn't fallen. I breathed deep, feeling the coolness fill my lungs. Marcus started talking about the next program he wanted to launch, his plans full of stubborn hope. I listened, her name threaded through everything he said. It hurt and healed at the same time. We had crossed the bridge, and now we stayed on the right side of it. Not unbroken, not whole, but moving forward. The river kept its secrets. We kept ours, not as weight to force someone over an edge, but as lessons that held us upright. I put my hand on Marcus's shoulder as we walked into the night, and we walked steady. Two men who had stood at the brink and chose together to come back.